This is Martin Giles from the Guildford Dragon News, and this morning we're at the Spike, where Joss Bigmore has stepped out of a meeting with the new Residents for Guildford and Villages meeting for this interview. Joss, thank you for giving us your time. Can you tell us, first of all, a bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for interviewing me. My name's Joss Bigmore. I've lived in Guildford about 10 years. I'm 42 years old. I have 8-year-old twins. I'm an economist by background, although I ended up being a trader for 20 years in the city. I left in 2016 and I now invest in small startup companies. So I work from home predominantly. It's pretty flexible. So I feel now I've got some time to give back to the community.
And what made you get involved in local politics?
I think an increasing sense of frustration. I think on the whole, Guildford is an absolutely fantastic place to live. I'm concerned that in the future it won't be so good for my children and you know, that generation. I think it's very easy to be a critic. I think there's a lot of that going on, and I think it's very brave for everyone that's in council, be it officers or councillors themselves, to stand up and do the job. You know, so I think rather than just be a vocal critic, I think it's kind of time to put my money where my mouth is.
Okay, and why not join one of the established parties? Wouldn't that give you a better chance of actually being elected?
Yes, it would, but I mean, I think the problem with, or my opinion of the problem with local politics is the national parties. I think the council has lost sight of the fact they should be a resident's voice rather than a Westminster voice. I think that, you know, the current regime has lost touch with the residents, lack of transparency, consultation, and I think being a part of that doesn't offer a solution. So it may give me a seat, but it doesn't really give me a voice, and it won't really affect policy making.
Okay,
So,
you talked about lack of transparency there. Is there one particular instance you can think of recently?
yeah, locally in my own ward of Holy Trinity, there's a moves going on at the moment to change the use of the campsite, which is, you know,
At the Chantries?
At the Chantries, yeah. So you know, I saw the plug for the Dragon. I saw the story first in the Dragon that there was an item coming up at a council executive meeting that they were going to close the campsite and put it over for forest school use. And I thought that's somewhat strange. I live 200 yards from the campsite, and I hadn't been notified. So, you know, thankfully, I was able to speak at the executive, and you know, my councillor at the time was very supportive. Said, you know, this decision should definitely be deferred. There hasn't been enough consultation. And then as we got closer to the meeting, it was gradually, actually, there's a lot of support for this. I think it's probably, you know, I think it's going to go through. And I thought, well, how can that happen? You haven't spoken to any campers, you haven't spoken to any dog walkers, any ramblers. You know, this decision may make sense economically, but socially this may be wrong. I don't know. You know, I haven't consulted, but I don't have the resources of the council. But it was kind of that as a small decision. And then when you see 80,000 responses to the local plan, and everyone's still unhappy, it's like, is this really transparent and accountable?
Okay. At your first public meeting, your organisation's first public meeting, you attracted an audience of 300, but there was some criticism of the way the meeting was managed. What lessons have you learned from that?
Oh, there's lots. I think the biggest lesson, which is very positive, was we thought we were going to have to explain to people why we were standing and some of the issues around Guildford. The audience already knew. They wanted to know what we were going to do about it. So we pitched our meeting completely wrong. We should have been there to listen and to say, you know, we see these problems, we know, what would you do? What would, you know, and make it much more of a receptive as opposed to a preaching. So I think we were genuinely surprised by the depth of knowledge and engagement of the audience in the problems with Guildford, which is brilliant. You know, brilliant for us, because it shows what we're doing has support.
So how are you going to put that right?
So we're having another meeting on the 7th of March at the United Reformed Church, where we're just going to listen. We've invited residents associations, supporters, people that perhaps didn't have a positive view of a first meeting. We've got the Reverend Hugh Greer coming to chair, and he was quite vocal in the meeting that he didn't think it was perhaps the best format. So we thought, rather than just fill it with yes men, we'd have someone that was critical of the meeting to come and chair.
Okay, and you've announced just the last 48 hours that you have about a dozen candidates prepared to stand. But even if they all won a seat, that wouldn't give you any real control at the council, would it?
I think it would. I think if we perform as well as we think we can, if the Greenbelt group do, if the Lib Dems do, and if Labour do, maybe we can have a split council. You know, I think the enemy, we have to be realistic. We haven't got the resources or the experience to run 48 candidates. You know, we're going to do our bit. We're going to try and win some seats. Hopefully the other parties do the same. And then maybe we have, you know, we have power that there is not an overall majority. And I think that's a realistic aim as opposed to an unrealistic aim of running far too many candidates that we can support.
You mentioned the GGG there. Will you be standing against them?
We don't have any formal agreement with any of the other parties, but as I think I've stated before, it seems counterproductive when other groups share many of our aims for us not to coordinate or maximise our chances of success at the election, and we'd kind of gauge success as no overall majority.
So that does sound like some kind of agreement.
Yeah, some sort of agreement. There's nothing in writing.
Okay.
I haven't personally spoken to Susan Parker, so.
Okay. Have you decided which ward you will stand in?
I will stand in Shalford, I will stand in Holy Trinity, or I will stand in Christchurch.
Okay.
I live on the borders of all
so
three.
So you've got a short list of those three?
Yes.
And you live in?
Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity ward. And what are the biggest issues in Guildford Borough, in Guildford Town, and your own ward of Holy Trinity to fix, do you think?
I think the biggest problem in Guildford Borough is affordability of homes. I think it's a shame if our children want to live here that they can't. I think that's a real shame. I think that, you know, when public workers can't afford to live here, they have to live miles away and commute in. It's just not good. I think that, you know, there's endless debate about the local plan, but I think building big houses on the Greenbelt is not solving the affordability problem. I think we need, you know, higher density homes in the town centre that people can afford. I'm not talking Woking high rise, I'm talking sensible development in the town. We have lots of brownfield sites that are currently derelict or car parks, and I think that's a real issue. I think pollution is a real problem in Guildford Town. I think that it's difficult to solve. I think hard decisions have to be made, but you know, the amount of people that arrive on the train, and it's embarrassing. Guildford's lovely, but you have to walk from the train station to the high street, and it's dangerous. And I don't see why in the last 10 years nothing's happened. You know, this is not new news. So they're two big problems for Guildford Borough and Guildford Town. In my own ward, I think we've already spoken about the Chantry's campsite. I think there's a problem across all the wards of this commercialisation or privatisation of community assets, whether it's Chantry's campsite, Birchett's barn, whether it's the football pitch up in Onslow, where the council are basically pricing people out of the market of using them and then turning them over to private enterprise. And that is not local concerns, that is Conservative ideology, and that is not good for local residents.
Okay, now you mentioned the Greenbelt. Are you against any development to the Greenbelt, and is there one policy for the whole group, or will different individuals have different ideas?
We are pragmatic about development. It is law that we have to have homes. The borough is predominantly Greenbelt. There will have to be some encroachment on the Greenbelt, obviously. Whether we need 3 strategic sites, I don't think so. I mean, we don't have the resources of the council. If we're elected, then maybe I'll be able to answer it slightly more technically. But when we're planning to build 40% more homes than we need, and we think we can get more homes in the town centre, then I think probably 1, if not 2 of the strategic sites should be dropped. Because to be clear, no one really wants that development apart from the property developers and the landowners.
Just Bigmore, thank you very much.
Thank you.